Yeah, that's right. We're following trends now. Might as well title this video Thoughts on Nintendo Switch 2 Announcement. Pregnancy scare? Okay, so I generally don't make like topical videos like this, but it's a momentous occasion. 2 months after a momentous occasion, to be exact. So I'm recording this in March, and the Nintendo Switch 2 was revealed in January. Oops. And normally I like the videos that we produce here to be like evergreen, like you can pick one up whenever you want. But you know, I haven't always done that. You know, there's a couple of Scott the Woz episodes that have not aged that well. You know, the first couple, to be exact, were like kind of more topical, talking about the Nintendo Switch before that was being released. And you know, looking back at those, there's really not much of a reason to go back to those. So hey, why the hell not? I have stuff to say about this thing that I'm sure, like, literally everybody else has already said at this point. I'm not really looking to make more topical content like this a reoccurring thing. You know, I do like to, you know, produce this stuff I produce with the mindset of, like, I want this to kind of be watchable for the next, like, 5+ years or so. But, you know, every now and then, I think it's fine. Especially considering my production flow with Scott the Woz at this point means if you would want to hear my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2, you'd probably have to wait like 7 years. So, why not? Let's talk about it right now. But before we do that, if you haven't already seen, I made a community post on Scott Stash a while back talking about how we are opening up this channel to sponsorships because, you know, we're a full team over here. The main channel, Scott the Woz, is unaffected by this, but, you know, every now and then videos on Scott Stash will be sponsored. We've already done 2 videos, but this is another one, so let's go. This video is sponsored by Factor. Fresh, never frozen meals. Have you ever wanted good food? Well, here comes Factor to deliver just that. Don't stress about meal planning with Factor. Every single meal is chef-crafted, dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Go ahead and pick from a weekly menu of 35 options, including Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Plus, more than 60 add-ons like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to aid in your goal to conquer the day, week, year, any period of time. Here I am eating the Peanut Buddha Bowl. You can't make this stuff up. These are genuinely really good meals. They're really tasty and I feel good after eating them. I'm serious. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50STASH to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50STASH at Factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Okay, so the Nintendo Switch 2... I care, but I don't. Like, I obviously care, but when it comes down to, like, what this console is all about, like, I'm just like, it's exactly what I wanted, and I am not that excited about it because of that. This is fundamentally a more powerful, more refined Nintendo Switch, which isn't a bad thing. I've seen some people argue the idea that, like, oh, the Nintendo Switch 2 is boring, and that's a sin. And I'm just kind of thinking, most of the people that are saying that hated the Wii U when that came out. Most of these people stopped using the 3D effect on the 3DS, like, a day after they got their handhelds. And most of these people clowned on Nintendo during the Wii generation because, they aren't making the hardcore games I want. No matter what, everybody is gonna complain, and I feel like people just kind of want to look at this and be a little contrarian. Of course, I think I'm going a little too harsh with this. Like, if you think that, that's totally fine. I just have a differing opinion, and that opinion is the Nintendo Switch was a runaway success. They would be absolutely idiotic to just throw that away to introduce a game console with 3 screens. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is exactly what it needed to be. The problem is, it's a little boring to discuss because of that. I just kind of look back to, like, the build-up to the Nintendo Switch, or even the Wii U, and those were just a lot more interesting because, you know, you could kind of, you know, think of the possibilities here. Oh my god, like a portable home console with detachable controllers. Oh my god, a screen on the controller? Like, what could we possibly do with that? Now, the Nintendo Switch 2, at the very least, has, like, the whole Joy-Con mouse nonsense. But it's like, I'm gonna be honest, as much as I assume Nintendo's gonna come up with, like, something unique to do with that stuff, mice have been a part of video games since basically the beginning. So I view that functionality as more so like just an extra input method or a solution to wanting more precise pointer type controls on a home console rather than, oh my god, think of the possibilities. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. This initial trailer dropped randomly in the middle of January on the release day of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. What? That was pretty ballsy of them to assume the media would just stop all their coverage of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD to cover the Nintendo Switch 2, but I guess it worked out. I was definitely following like that Nintendo Switch 2 subreddit every now and then just to see like what the hell people were like freaking out about today, and just seeing like all these people going literally insane. Reminds me back to like the NX days of the Nintendo Switch when like people were like going like any day now, any day now, any day now. Definitely kind of had that with the Switch 2, though, to be fair. Now we actually had like games and announcements and just stuff to keep us fed during, you know, the build up to the Nintendo Switch or the NX at the time. There was literally like nothing. It was in 2016, the Wii U was dead, the 3DS had a bunch of just whatever games, there was like a couple of decent ones. Now it's kind of like the build up to the Nintendo Switch 2 didn't feel nearly as pathetic feeling to be a Nintendo fan, but it was getting to that level. You know, 2024 wasn't a bad year for the Nintendo Switch, but I mean, like, I think everybody was kind of assuming we were gonna get, like, the announcement of the Switch 2 in, like, early 2024, or even, like, in 2023. Like, pretty much every year of the back end of the Switch's life, people were talking about, oh, man, when is Nintendo going to announce a successor? But there was a whole Switch Pro thing. It was, like, in 2021, it was, like, they're gonna do a Switch Pro. The fucking Switch OLED. I swear that must have been, like, some kind of, like, table scrap product that was meant to be a Switch Pro, and then they just went like, well, let's just make it a Switch, but with a better screen. But yeah, it's been a couple of years that I feel like a lot of Switch users have been kind of going like, okay, like, this is all fine, but we really need something a little bit better than this. You ever played the Nintendo Switch for a while, and then you actually play, like, a PS5 game, or hell, even a PS4 game, and you're like, oh, damn, video games can actually look good. I mean, it's been getting to the point that, like, Nintendo first-party titles have been having, like, some pretty rough frame rates and resolutions. So when Nintendo themselves are having problems, you know, developing for this hardware, I think it's been obvious for a couple of years now, like, we need an upgrade, and Switch 2 seems to be that, you know. Most rumors are kind of pointing towards, like, this is potentially going to be, like, PS4 levels of power. Maybe PS4 Pro, but, like, probably a little, like, in the middle there. I know nothing about technical specs, but I'm just kind of spitballing right now. And yeah, honestly, if the Switch 2 is, like, as powerful as a PS4, like, that is more than enough. Like, most games coming out for the PS5 these days can run and will run on a PS4. So I feel like that automatically opens the door to, like, so many possibilities. Like, practically most games do have a chance of coming to the Switch 2, which is exciting, but it also kind of makes me feel like a lot of these, like, miracle ports from the Nintendo Switch won't feel as, like, special. You know, everybody would point to, like, Doom and Doom Eternal as, like, oh my god, this is insane, they can get this running on the Switch. Doom the Dark Ages, if that comes to Switch 2, it's gonna be like, okay. Which isn't a bad thing, it's more so just kind of an interesting thing to think about here. The fact that a lot of third-party games and multi-platform titles would just kind of feel like, that makes sense. Like, I feel like going into the Switch 2, seeing the Switch 2 logo on a game trailer for, like, a AAA big game isn't gonna feel nearly as, like, what? It's just kind of an interesting thing to discuss, because as a Nintendo little boy, I felt so special with my little Nintendo console. So even when things are rough, you know, we feel like we're a part of, like, a little community. You know, oh man, the Wii U sucks, but hey, all of us in the community, we're all playing the same great games. The Nintendo Switch finally got, like, a 5-year-old PS4 game, and it's at a lower resolution and frame rate, but oh boy, it runs on the Nintendo Switch. What a dream! I feel like we're not gonna get that with the Switch 2. Nintendo proved themselves with the Switch, and now with much more capable hardware, we're just gonna get a lot more third-party games, and it isn't gonna feel as special to get, like, a big, hardcore AAA game, but, you know, I mean, it's a good thing that we're gonna get more of them, so, like, whatever. But that notion that Nintendo doesn't really need to prove themselves with this. Definitely kind of leaked into the announcement. You know, we're obviously following a very similar time frame to the original Nintendo Switch, where, you know, that was revealed in October, and then like 2-3 months later they did the presentation, and then it released like 2 months after that. And while with the announcement we just have a vague 2025 release year, I think this thing is coming out in the summer. I'm thinking it's gonna come out in June, which fits perfectly with how things worked for the original Nintendo Switch. The thing is, with the announcement of that console, they did like a little like teaser tweet the night before. They had that ominous Mario mascot image, and they said, "Be among the first to discover NX." And they gave like a release time of the trailer and everything. They obviously didn't need to do that this time because, you know, back then in 2016, like, Nintendo had to beg you to give a shit about them. You know, they kind of had to build up some hype. This time, like, Nintendo just drops a Nintendo Switch 2 trailer. I didn't even catch the trailer at the right time when it was just titled an update from Nintendo. Like, that was the initial like title for the thumbnail and YouTube video. They just cold dropped it on the morning of January 16th. And then the trailer is more so just the Switch 1 turns into the Switch 2. You know, like, hey, we're evolving. Compared to the Switch 1 trailer, which kind of had a bigger emphasis on, like, what is this console? What makes it unique? They didn't do that with this one because they already know you know what the Switch is. Like, this isn't trying to do anything more than just be a Nintendo Switch 2. But of course, everybody's talking about ways that Nintendo would just want to fuck around a little bit. One element that so many people point to is the USB-C port on the top of the console. I'm seeing a lot of people like start talking about like, oh, well that's where you plug in the top screen. Like, people are thinking like this is how you're gonna be able to, you know, do DS-like stuff. You know, they would sell a separate screen attachment, you know, because why else would they put the USB-C port there? I guarantee you Nintendo literally just put that there so then you could charge the thing. / you could also potentially use more like USB-C based accessories with the console, which no, I don't think they're gonna do a screen. That would be so stinking flimsy. Obviously they would design the thing in like probably a casing where you insert the casing over the Nintendo Switch 2, which would then have the screen on top of it, and then, you know, like that casing would have like pretty much be a hinge where you could like close the screen and all of that. I understand like the concept here, but I guarantee you, like, at this point there is no reason for that. Firstly, that would be so expensive. That would probably be $100, $200 on its own. And secondly, like, there has never really been a moment where I am using the Nintendo Switch and I am thinking like, damn, I could use a second screen right now. Yes, some Wii U ports feel like, you know, they rip the second screen functionality out and they feel a little tacked on Switch. And, you know, you have stuff like Super Mario Maker 2, which would have really benefited from, like, Wii U gamepad type thing. But not in the way that people are talking, where it's like, oh, make it like a giant-ass DS. Like, no. I think if you're gonna play, like, DS or 3DS games, like, emulated on Switch, I think it makes more sense to just flip the Switch, like, vertically, and then have like an attachment where you can attach the Joy-Con to the other sides of the Switch. You know, they call it Tate mode. I think it's like an unofficial mode of the Nintendo Switch already. I don't think Nintendo has ever referred to Tate mode themselves, but a lot of games use it so then you can have that vertical screen orientation. I think that makes a lot more sense if they want to resell those old games in their original dual screen type form than a giant screen you attach to the Switch 2. And I feel like, you know, potentially what else they might do is, like, you know, allow you to use, like, maybe a USB-C, a hard drive, or, you know, an SSD you can plug into there directly. Might be a little flopping around a little bit, but that was an initial problem that some people had with the Switch. The fact that you can't use external hard drives with it, which I think makes sense because, like, it is like a portable system that you plug into the dock. Yes, the dock has USB ports, but there would probably be too many problems with, like, oh, what if you have the hard drive plugged into the dock and then you take the Switch out of the dock, and what if you're playing a game on the hard drive it would just stop working, and like doing that so many times, like, you know, I think there would be some problems with that. Potentially having a direct connection with the Switch might make that a little safer. But I think for the most part, like, one of the big complaints people had with the Switch 1 was that you can't charge it while it's in tabletop mode because the charger's on the bottom. So Nintendo's like, well, we'll put a second charger on the top. Nintendo released a whole ass accessory to like circumvent this problem. Like this was something that they were very aware of and they tried to fix. Like this is them responding to that. So I'm not gonna rule out the possibility that the USB-C port on the top will be used for anything but just like an extra charging port. I think it does open up the possibility for more ways to connect different things to the Switch 2 directly. But I don't think there's going to be a top screen attachment. I don't think it's going to be really much else other than this is a different way to charge the thing if you want. I think the new Joy-Con look pretty good. I like the fact that they are bigger, and the fact that they use magnets is definitely kind of a smart evolution of this. I noticed that it feels like the Switch's sound effect when they come in is more of a clap, which makes sense because they're clapping onto the system. I've noticed some people like point out the connector on the Switch 2, like, oh, that's gonna break off. I don't think so. I think that thing is deep enough in the Switch that it's like, like I understand what they're saying. Like it looks so thin, but it's like I genuinely can't really see a situation where like that bit gets broken off, but like the rest of the Switch doesn't get broken. Like the only way I really see that happening is if the Joy-Con are in the system and you're genuinely trying to like bend everything. Like more is breaking than just that bit right there. So it's like, I don't really think that bit is gonna be a problem. I do wish the Joy-Con looked a little more ergonomic. You know, they look like they're the exact same like flat-ass Joy-Con that we've seen before. I've always had problems with the way the Joy-Con just have nothing to them. It is just a completely flat thing. You know, it's all fine, but you know, it does get a little tiring to hold that for an extended period of time. Apparently, no IR camera on these things, which leads into the whole backwards compatibility debacle. I've seen a couple of videos titled where people are like, oh no, Nintendo, this could be a bad thing, and like they're just trying to make something out of nothing. So the whole thing is at the end of the Switch 2 trailer, they specifically have like a couple of little cards that tell you very specific information Nintendo wants to, you know, let you know, which is one, the Switch 2 is backwards compatible with the Switch 1, and it says most games will work on it. Some games may not be fully compatible. The exact wording is they may not be supported or fully compatible. They're obviously talking about like stuff like Nintendo Labo. I mean, something like Labo VR, you have to insert the full Switch into a very tight cardboard headset. The Switch 2 is quite a bit bigger, so automatically that it's not gonna work. There's a couple of accessories that just won't work out of the box with the Switch 2. You're gonna probably need Switch 1 Joy-Con, which I feel like there's absolutely no reason why Switch 1 Joy-Con won't connect to the Switch 2, which was Nintendo's little tricky-dicky little plan they did there. When Nintendo World Championships NES Edition launched, they also announced, hey, we're releasing this, you know, Switch Joy-Con charger thing. And it's like, why the hell are you putting this out in 2024? Like, immediately when this happened, like, pretty much everybody said, like, yeah, that's why, you know, because you're going to need a way to charge your old Joy-Con on the Nintendo Switch 2 because they're not going to be compatible with it because, you know, they use the rail system. Switch 2 uses the magnets. These little cheeky bastards tried to pull this off like they were releasing this because, like, oh, well, Nintendo World Championships, you might want to use your NES Nintendo Switch Online controllers with that. And, well, what if you want to charge multiple at once? Well, oh boy. I mean, like, that does make me think. They definitely have to re-release those NES controllers, right? Those are, like, the only special retro controllers Nintendo's put out that use the Joy-Con rail. And it is such a funky little thing putting those on a regular Switch. I genuinely don't use the retro controllers that much. They're fun novelties, but You know, like, I definitely don't use the NES controllers that much because, like, they're always dead. I'm not putting those things on my Switch. It turns into a big hassle. I have to plan on playing with those controllers because I have like a bunch of Nintendo Switch Joy-Con docks that I charge all my Joy-Con on, and the NES controllers don't fit on them. So for the future of the NES controllers, I pray that they release one with USB-C, because that's what they did starting with like the SNES controller. They were just like, F this, we're not doing this rail system anymore. But yeah, going back to the IR camera stuff, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And, like, if you can just sync original Joy-Con to the Switch 2, I don't really care. I mean, the most recent game where Nintendo really used the IR camera was, like, WarioWare Move It. And, like, you know, I like WarioWare Move It, so it's just, like, if I will play that on my Switch 2 at one point, you know, it would be good to just sync old Joy-Con and be able to work with it there. But, you know, I mean, like, they used it so infrequently. Like, it's just such like a whatever nothing feature at the end of the day. Like, I think it would be a lot more useful to just have a flat out camera on the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons or something, you know. Instead it's like, oh, it's an IR camera, oh, it has night vision, oh, you can download the night vision game on Nintendo Switch, good for you. But obviously they took the resources that would have been put into an IR camera, they put it into this little mouse thing. So these Joy-Con can be used as mice. They kind of tease it in the trailer, and then they also, like, a patent came out that showed, like, the idea that these Joy-Con will be used as mice. I knew it was, like, leaked before. Like, people showed, like, the side of the Joy-Con, and you could see this little, like, whatever, kind of like the infrared thing that's on, you know, the bottom of, like, computer mice. Which, you know, it would be pretty cool if they used the old school ball, but they didn't. It's just, it's a regular, like, mouse kind of setup. Who knows, they might do some funky little things with that, and I think it is kind of interesting that they might be using, like, two mice, since both Joy-Con have that capability. So, you know, that might kind of put it an edge over just standard PC games that use mice. You know, oh, now you have two mice at all times. Obviously, nothing's stopping, like, PC game developers from just designing a game where you have to plug in two USB mice or something. Or, you know, hell, Game Builder Garage on Nintendo Switch had mouse support. So it's not like this is, like, a new concept to be using computer mice on game consoles. There have been accessories that have allowed you to use, like, keyboard and mouse on, like, any games on, like, I remember, like, 360, PS3. Now, I'm going back to, like, the Dreamcast with, like, the Dreamcast mouse and keyboard. You had the web browser on that thing. Super Nintendo, Mario Paint. I think the way they're probably going to do this is they aren't going to ship a mouse pad with the thing, God no. I think because, like, everybody's TV setup is different, so, you know, if you want to use the mouse on the big screen or something, Nintendo's probably going to be like, well, buy this extra accessory, which would be kind of like the Mario Paint mouse pad. It's just this giant, sturdy thing of plastic that you can set on your lap, and you can use the mouse and everything. But I think for the most part, they're going to advertise this as, like, a tabletop thing. I think it's a much sexier feature, I guess, with the idea of, like, you know, setting up the Switch on a table and just using the mouse that way. Yeah, I find that sexy, you know, don't... Everybody has their kink. Like I was saying, this isn't like a new concept or anything, but the fact that it's built into the system, I think, is massive. You know, not every game for every home console is designed with, like, mouse support. Now, it isn't just like an external accessory you buy. Like, no, it comes with the system. So I think it's much more likely that a lot of games will have mouse support, which is pretty cool. And I think especially with, like, dual mice, Nintendo might be doing, like, some kind of interesting things with that. I think it's completely fair to expect, like, they're gonna be putting out, like, some kind of funky ass little casual party game that would be focused on using the Joy-Con as mice. But I also think this is a suitable replacement for pointer controls in a lot of situations. So I remember, like, a year or two ago, it came out that, like, Nintendo renewed the trademark for, like, Pushmo, but also, like, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse. So, you know, there was some speculation like, oh, these games could come back. Kirby and the Rainbow Curse would always, like, work on the regular Switch, like, perfectly fine. But in TV mode, you know, you need that touchscreen support. So the idea is like, oh, well, they'd probably do like a gyro pointer. And yeah, that would be a solution, a wrong solution, but a solution. Yeah, that would be bad. That would be really bad. Even using like the thumbstick to draw your lines in that game, that would be pretty pitiful. But using a mouse in that game seems like it would work pretty well. And like, you know, if I take a Joy-Con and I just like move that around like a mouse, like, it's not, like, the most damn comfortable thing. Like, I'm not, like, just, like, drooling at the thought of doing that. It's not, like, the most comfortable thing. But it works. Like, it's not uncomfortable. It functions fine. So, and you have access to all the face buttons and stuff. You have access to, like, the triggers. Like, it works well. And, you know, I think it is interesting, you know, what this can do for games. You know, I think it can help to replace kind of that cursed gyro pointer in games like, let's say, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, if that would come to Switch 2. But also be kind of a cool option where, like, maybe first-person shooters like Metroid Prime 4, like, oh, that could have mouse support. You know, they could do a Switch 2 version of, like, Civilization 7. They can finally bring The Sims over, like, the regular, like, Sims 4 to Switch 2. And, like, I know that game already has, like, console versions, but the Switch version already has like a dedicated, like, more like, oh, there's a big audience that really likes games like The Sims on Switch. That would just make the Switch version that much better, is the fact that, like, oh, you can easily use a mouse in this game. The design of the system, I think, looks fine. You know, it looks like a Switch, but, you know, they definitely did enough here and there to kind of just fully, like, give it a bit of its own identity. I think the accents of the color of the Joy-Con was a smart move, because, you know, it does kind of tell you, like, oh, this looks a little different from what I'm used to, outside of the fact that there's a giant-ass 2 in the logo, which I'm gonna say right now, I hate this stupid-ass logo. I think it's dumb. It's literally the Switch logo with a 2 next to it, and then on the bottom, it just still says Nintendo Switch. I hate this logo. I mean, like, it's fine, but, like, I'm like, I don't like it. It's stupid, okay? But the name itself, like, it is what it needs to be. And like, that's what it is at the end of the day. The Nintendo Switch 2 is exactly what it needs to be. We don't know exactly how powerful it is right now. We don't know a ton about it outside of, like, one game. But when it comes to the successor to the Nintendo Switch, like, this is what it is, you know, and like, I'm not mad at it. I'm perfectly happy with it. It's just not very exciting, you know. We're kind of circle back to that. It is a very, like, boring new console. I am excited, but, like, not in the sense of, like, previous console generations. But let me reiterate, that is okay. You know, like, I think Nintendo, as much as I love how crazy and stupid they've been, you know, I think when it comes to the hardware itself, I think if you don't have, like, a big new crazy idea that you are, like, super passionate about, and you're like, damn, like, this will change gaming, we need to do this, don't do it. You know, the Wii and the DS were situations where, like, they had those ideas, they had that vision, they were like, this is what we're gonna do, this makes sense. The Wii U was an example of them really forcing it. They were like, oh, well, the next console we need to do something just as crazy. If they did it like a more traditional sequel to the Wii that was more powerful and was just called Wii 2 and had, like, a, you know, like a refined Wii remote and nunchuck, and it maybe came with, like, a more hardcore controller in the box or something too, I don't think that would have done, like, crazy, but, like, I think that would have done much better than the Wii U did. The Nintendo Switch worked. It is an imperfect device, everything is, but all it really needed was, like, an upgrade, and this is that. Now, will Nintendo maintain the success from the Nintendo Switch? I don't think this is going to be a failure by a long shot. I don't think it's going to reach the same success as the Nintendo Switch 1. But I remember back when I said, I don't think the Nintendo Switch will do, like, crazy, crazy numbers. Will it outsell the PS4? I may be dumb, but I'm proud of it, damn it. So listen, I don't know jack shit, so don't even listen to me here, but, you know, I think it'll do well. I don't think it'll, like, sell as well as the Switch 1, because I feel like the Switch 1, you know, like, how many people are you really going to get that have a Switch 1 that are like, well, shoot, now I gotta buy a Switch 2? It all depends on the games they have available and like what's going on with the Switch 2, and we just don't know that right now. But I think the problem is, I guarantee you a lot of people are going to be more than content just with a Switch 1 and Animal Crossing and Mario Kart on that, and they aren't really going to need anything more than that for a good like 10 years. Honestly, I know that sounds a little crazy, but it's like, you know, like, how are you going to convince everybody that bought a Switch 1 with Mario Kart that this new Mario Kart is like, oh, well, you got to get this too? Now, I think it'll do really, really well, but I'm skeptical if it's going to meet the same success as the Switch 1 in that regard. But speaking of, you know, convincing people to buy a new Mario Kart, you don't have to convince me. That looks pretty good. Mario Kart for Nintendo Switch 2. It is very cool to see the fact that it's like, all right, you know, they were doing it. They were actually making the Mario Kart that we were all hoping for. Things seem pretty good with the fact that Nintendo is actively like, all right, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold crazy. So that is going to be the main focus. The new Mario Kart is going to be the main focus. We are going to make sure this comes out at launch or really early on with the Switch 2. This is going to be the Switch 2's like big game that we're showing off with it. And that makes total sense. I mean, like, look back on the Wii U. We had to wait like a year to see Mario Kart 8, and then it didn't come out for another year after that. Now, will this be a launch title? You know, I think it is the most Nintendo thing in the world to show this off first thing with the Switch 2, and it ain't coming out until early next year or something. You know, I think it makes sense that this will be a launch title. You know, there was kind of this idea that, like, what if Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is a cross-gen game, and it does kind of the Breath of the Wild, kind of Twilight Princess thing, where, you know, it's really, like, you know, here to push the Switch 2. I'm not really sure about that anymore. I think it'd be great if that game got a Switch 2 version, but, you know, I'm not really sure if that's going to be a launch title for the Switch 2, especially with Mario Kart coming out on that thing. Mario Kart is probably literally, like, all you need at the Switch 2's launch. Nintendo will probably have, like, one other game, but I think it makes total sense that Mario Kart is going to be the Switch 2 launch title. And I think that's all they really need. That is, as long as they have a steady release schedule after that. If there's like a big another game like a month later or 2 months later, at the very longest, like I think there needs to be something else there, and it is kind of hard to figure out like what that might be. But for the time being, all we know is Mario Kart, and Mario Kart looks fantastic. Obviously, Nintendo is transitioning to a much more like Mario Wonder style for the Mario universe. You know, like just the fact that everything is so bubbly. It almost looks like the character art for like Mario Kart 64, but modernized in like actually in game. You know, the way Mario looks really looks like a throwback to like the 90s, but with its own charm at the same time. It very much feels like they took like the 2D art from the Mario series and transition that into 3D. You know, it felt like that with Wonder, and it feels like that with this game here. Obviously, there's a lot more to this game than just, oh, it's just another Mario Kart. I mean, like, this track doesn't even seem like a traditional track. It's so big. This seems like it's, like, adventure mode or, like, this big open world race or something like that. You know, like, it obviously is much more than just, this is Mario Kart 9 or Mario Kart 10 for all you Mario Kart Tour bastards. I think that's really cool, you know, especially considering the Switch 2 can play Switch 1 games. You know, I think it's cool that this one is taking on a bit of a different appearance and also like feel. If this doesn't really like fit what you want out of Mario Kart, you literally have 96 courses of pure basic ass Mario Kart with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You also have like a bunch of releases on NSO and stuff. I think it's cool that they're kind of doing something a little more unique. Also, you know, obviously the whole 24 racers at once thing, that's really cool. It depends on like how they balance things out. Obviously the tracks are going to need to be like wider, bigger, more space for that, and like the items, I I'm very interested to see how that works. You know, potentially, you know, if it's going to be too crazy, I think it'd be great if that's just kind of like an extra mode. Like you can always go back to like 12 racers, or I'll maybe even like go back to like, oh, there's only 6 racers, you know, like maybe like it might be cool if you can like pick and choose that way. But yeah, I think Mario Kart looks great. I think this game, and like the initial thought with this is that it doesn't look that much better than Mario Kart 8. It looks different than Mario Kart 8, but like it looks like, you know, like something we'd expect out of Mario Kart 8. But then when people are like showing these side-by-side comparisons, I always thought Mario Kart 8 was like one of the greatest looking video games of all time. And now when I look at it, like the characters are so like grimy looking, not bad, but it's like they just look so like whatever, static in comparison to this new Mario Kart game. It looks so much better. The characters are so much more expressive. It works so much better with them. In Mario Kart 8, it still looks great, but this is a far bigger upgrade than it initially looks like, which, you know, isn't as exciting as like how Mario Kart 8 looked. When Mario Kart 8 was first revealed, like it was like, holy shit, like this is this massive upgrade. This is one of the best looking games of all time. But then with this game, it just looks like, you know, kind of what you'd expect a new Mario Kart to look like. But, you know, as you kind of linger on it, like, yeah, it's a big upgrade. It looks great. Donkey Kong looks different. Not really. I mean, like, he kind of looks like, you know, the Nintendo designed Donkey Kong. You know, it kind of reminds me of like a mix of modern DK and classic DK. Kind of like how the Mario movie Donkey Kong looked. I think when we look at like the 2D Mario illustrators like take on Donkey Kong, I feel like this looks in line with that, but I think they're doing something where like Donkey Kong's eyes now are like they're trying to just make him less pissed off at all times. Like that just seems to be the big thing. A lot of people are also pointing to like this Donkey Kong calendar that is showing like Donkey Kong with like full blown eyes. Like he doesn't have his furrowed brow anymore. So, you know, I mean, like I think he looks fun. He's a monkey. He's supposed to look a little dumb. So I think that's interesting. I think it might be interesting if like this is gonna be more so like what he looks like in like Mario spin-offs compared to like the Donkey Kong Country series, because it's interesting that like last year they introduced the Donkey Kong land in Universal Studios, and you know, like they have the older design of Donkey Kong all over that damn thing, and then just like a couple months later they introduced like this brand new design for Donkey Kong they're pushing. I don't know, who knows? But that brings us to what games am I expecting to see on Switch 2? And Mario Kart, obviously, you know, oh boy, how could I have thought of that? I think this is really tricky because I'm not sure if we can really expect to see a Xenoblade game on Switch 2 in year 1. You know, I mean, if they're doing Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition in March, it's just like, you know, how likely is it we're going to get another mainline Xenoblade game by the end of the year? Probably not. Probably not going to get an ARMS 2, and not for the reason that it's ARMS 2, but primarily because ARMS was developed by the Mario Kart team, and if they're doing Mario Kart, then, you know, probably not an ARMS 2. I think an ARMS 2 would be cool to see. I think there's a lot of things in that game that I do like other than playing it. I mean, it's fun, but like, you know, for a full-fledged game, like I would love to see the game expanded a lot more. Could we expect to see like a Splatoon game? I hope we get Animal Crossing first. I think we could potentially see Animal Crossing this year, considering that Splatoon 3 came out in like what, 2022? So, you know, I mean, like that could be enough time for them to get Animal Crossing. Potentially 2026. 2026, I think, might be a safer bet for Animal Crossing. But this has got to be, like, the same thing as Mario Kart. Like, Nintendo obviously pushed for Mario Kart to be available on the Switch 2, like, at launch or close to launch, because it worked so well with Switch 1, with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe being available like within the first like 2 months of that system being out. So now you have like a brand new Mario Kart. Well, look at how like amazing Animal Crossing sold. Like, don't you think they would be pushing for Animal Crossing to be available on the Switch 2 within the first year? I think they're at least, they got to be working on it at the very least. But yeah, you know, I think Animal Crossing year 1, but maybe going into like, it might be at the tail end of year 1. If Switch 2 launches in like June, I feel like we might be getting Animal Crossing for Switch 2 by like in like May of 2026, June of 2026. Zelda is definitely a no. We might get like a teaser for like what they plan to do with Zelda, kind of like what they did during the Wii U Direct in January of 2013. Like they had Eiji Aonuma up there and he was like, here's what we're thinking about the next Zelda game. And that was pretty much it. I feel like we might be getting like a remake or a remaster, but that might be something that's like a cross-gen game, you know? I think it would be absolutely absurd if they finally release Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, and it's a Switch 2 exclusive. I'm like, why? That might be something where they put it out for Switch 1, you know, you're supporting Switch 1, but Switch 2 users will also pick it up and they can play it on Switch 2, maybe even with graphical enhancements. You know, it might be kind of interesting if now with the mouse support, they actually re-release / remake Phantom Hourglass or Spirit Tracks. I don't think that would be like a super popular one, but I think that would actually be like a pretty good way to play those games. I think, you know, one of the big problems with those games is the control method, and at least using a mouse, I think like you're not going to be, your hand isn't going to be covering up the touchscreen most of the time, and I think it'll be a little more comfortable that way. But something that was rumored when apparently Nintendo was like, you know, demoing the Switch 2 to game developers was a Breath of the Wild remaster, which would definitely be interesting. I would obviously buy it. I'm not that excited about it. You know, I mean, like, it would be nice to see that in a higher resolution, but it would be kind of weird because, like, we just got Tears of the Kingdom, like, 2 years ago. So now we're gonna get Breath of the Wild remastered, and then Tears of the Kingdom is just gonna be running like absolute ass. I'm like, why? You know, these two games at this point, they kind of feel like a full package. Like you can't really do one without doing the other. I think a Breath of the Wild remaster would be nice. I don't necessarily feel like revisiting that game right now because, you know, I just, you know, Tears of the Kingdom was a massive experience. And while I was working on the Tears of the Kingdom Isn't Perfect episode of Scott the Woz, I actually went through a good majority of Breath of the Wild again to get better footage of stuff with Breath of the Wild. So I fundamentally replayed Breath of the Wild. So I'm good, but I think that would be kind of interesting to see that at a higher resolution and better frame rate, all of that stuff, but I don't think it's really that necessary. I think what would be a lot more exciting would be like a full-blown remake of, say, something like Ocarina of Time or something, where it's like they could obviously just do Ocarina of Time 3D and port that over, make it look a little nicer. I think it'd be cool if it was like, you know, they really went for it, you know, like this is a Switch 2 remake of Ocarina of Time. I think that would be more exciting, but, you know, I think Breath of the Wild remastered is a little more likely. But that kind of brings up the idea is like, would this remaster be kind of like what like Sony and Microsoft do, where you put, you know, the game in and, you know, you either get like an upgrade or you pay for an upgrade, or you might get a discount if you already own the game or any of that, you know. I think with this, they probably sell it on its own for like $50-$60. I think it might be just like a really easy way for them to just kind of show like, hey, this is how much better the Switch 2 is. If they really go for it, that's the thing. Like if it's just a resolution increase and a frame rate bump, I'm like, okay, like, oh great, you're showing me what the Switch 2 can do with a damn Wii U game. 3D Mario, that's an obvious one. You know, I think 3D Mario is going to be a holiday title for this year. I think if you put out Mario Kart and a 3D Mario at the same time, that would be pretty cool and interesting, but I almost feel like that would overwhelm the fuck out of me. I think it makes sense that launch would be like Mario Kart and like some kind of casual party game, even though like Mario Kart already kind of fills that void of like a casual party game, but everybody likes Mario Kart, you know, like it's just, it's a great launch game. I don't really think you need to worry about like, oh, well, it's more multiplayer focused. Like everybody plays Mario Kart single player, you know, like everybody wants to play Mario Kart and train up, so then during their multiplayer matches, they're much better at it, they understand. And potentially this Mario Kart will have a heavier focus on single player, so yeah, I think it's fine. 3D Mario, I think, makes the most sense for, like, holiday title. And yeah, I feel like they'd probably do something new. I don't think they'd do Super Mario Odyssey 2. I think the time for that has passed. I think they're probably going to do something new in the vein of like Bowser's Fury, where it's like this wide open area. And I think the Switch 2 would allow that to be much more possible. Bowser's Fury worked on Switch, but they definitely had to kind of work around it. Also probably because like that game probably didn't have like the same budget as like a standalone AAA 3D Mario. So they had to kind of like mask a lot of things with like, oh, you're surrounded by water for the majority of the time. But I think with the power of Switch 2, we can finally get like this grand open world Mario game, which I think would be really damn cool. Now, of course, with every new Nintendo console, question is about Smash Brothers. Of course, like I feel like after Smash Brothers Ultimate pretty much like did everything it possibly could, I feel like kind of the hype around a new Smash Brothers isn't really that big as it once were. Like Smash Brothers is still very popular, and I would love to see a new entry, but Smash Brothers Ultimate pretty much just did everything to the point that it's like I'm not necessarily like going like, oh my god, a new Smash Brothers is coming. I'm not actually sure, because if you were following Masahiro Sakurai's Creating Games YouTube channel, you know, during his final video, he said that he was working on a brand new game, and you know, it will probably be revealed soon, and you know, I assume that's gonna be a Switch 2 game. You know, there's nothing saying that Sakurai couldn't work on like an Xbox or PlayStation game, but you know, he's mostly doing stuff with Nintendo. So, would it be Smash Brothers? Would it be something else? Would it maybe be like a return to Kid Icarus with like a Kid Icarus Uprising sequel or something? I don't know. Sakurai always implies that like every Smash Brothers is like his absolute last. This is gonna be the end of it. And then he always comes back. Now, I feel like after, like, you know, working on Smash, Wii U, and 3DS, and then immediately jumping into Smash Brothers Ultimate, the dude must want kind of like a little bit of a break from Smash Brothers, so I think it'd be really cool if he returned to Kid Icarus, or did a completely new IP, slash, you know, resurrected a different IP, or just worked on a different IP. Who knows? I don't know. I think Kid Icarus would be really cool, but I think it would probably make more sense to do like a Kid Icarus Uprising remake slash re-release port, whatever, especially with the Joy-Con mouse. I think that would make it a lot easier to control, because that game, it was really designed around like the touchscreen controls of aiming with that and having that precise movement. So, you know, you probably could adapt that game to work with like twin sticks or gyro controls, but I think with how hectic that game is, I think a mouse would definitely be a lot more usable with it. But yeah, I think it would make sense if he's working on Smash Brothers as well. You know, Bandai Namco developed Smash Brothers, and they opened up like a completely new studio that is completely dedicated to Nintendo development. So obviously, like, they're gonna try to do a new Smash Brothers game. And I feel like that would probably be a 2026 game, though. You know, I think that would have been, like, more than enough time. You know, that's, like, 5 years after the DLC wrapped up for Smash Ultimate. Nearly 10 years after that game came out, so I think that would feel about right. I think 2025 might be a little too full if you would do, like, Mario Kart and 3D Mario. I think you have enough like of like the AAA big heavy hitters there. And in 2026, I think Smash Brothers. Now in terms of like casual games, I think Switch 2 has the chance to do a lot of cool things with like, you know, a Nintendo Switch Sports sequel. Switch Sports sold incredibly well, like at like 15, 16 million units. I think you could definitely kind of rectify a lot of the problems with that game with Nintendo Switch Sports 2, or if you want to call it Nintendo Switch 2 Sports, I don't know what you would call it. But yeah, I think you could definitely kind of upgrade that in a lot of different ways. And Ring Fit Adventure would need a new version that would work with these new Joy-Con. So, you know, I think we would probably get a Ring Fit Adventure 2, but not sure if those would come out around launch time. I think the most likely would be like a Switch Sports successor, just because like this first year, I'm not really sure how many accessory based games make sense to launch this year. I think that's more so like once the once the install base is there in like 2026, 2027, that's when you like, all right, let's do Ring Fit Adventure 2 or something. I think a Switch Sports successor would make a lot of sense, just to have that new like casual game that you know, people actually want to play, compared to whatever the hell Nintendo's gonna fart out at launch. It's gonna be some 1-2 Switch ass looking thing. I feel like a new Fire Emblem would probably fit pretty well this year. You know, I think there's too much like Mario stuff going on in 2025. I think it would make a lot of sense to see like a Fire Emblem game. You know, Fire Emblem Engage came out in like early 2023, but that game I think was apparently done for like a year plus. So that game was good to go for a while. So it's been a while since they've developed a new Fire Emblem, so I think a new one would make sense. Potentially, I know there's been so much like rumbling of a Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War remake from the Super Famicom, much like how they did like Fire Emblem Gaiden from the Famicom, remade on the 3DS as Fire Emblem Echoes. So we could get that. We could get a new Fire Emblem, maybe Genealogy of the Holy War got moved over to Switch 2 exclusive, or maybe it's a cross-gen game, or maybe it's just going to be on Switch 1. I don't know, but I think a Fire Emblem makes sense for 2025. But yeah, man, I mean, like, I can keep going. I mean, like, we're obviously going to get a new Donkey Kong game soon, at some point, you know. Probably in 2026. It's all 2026. Most stuff makes sense for 2026. You know, but at this point, I'm kind of just spitballing, and you know, I think a lot of third-party games would make sense. I think it would definitely make sense to see Elden Ring on this thing. I think we're definitely going to see the Resident Evil games, Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8. I think we're definitely going to be getting Monster Hunter Wilds. I think we're definitely going to get Black Myth Wukong at some point. We're definitely going to get Metaphor. And we're definitely going to get Rayman Legends Definitive Edition 2. You know, I think we're a little too early right now. You know, we've been working off of just one trailer. And you know, Direct is happening in April. They have the Switch 2 Experience, which apparently was a shit show for many people to sign up for. I don't really care about that. If it was easy for me to go to one of those, like, sure. But one, like, there's none that's really that close to me, and two, it's really hard to get into one of those. So I'm just like, I'm gonna be playing this console anyways, like 2 months after the Direct, so it's like, I don't care. But here's the thing. I am excited for the Nintendo Switch 2, mainly because I'm excited to move into a new era for Nintendo. I can't wait to see how Nintendo games look on this thing. I can't wait to see all the different third-party games that's going to be available. Obviously, like, I think things like the Steam Deck have kind of taken a lot of the wind out of seeing like some certain games portable on Nintendo Switch, because with the Steam Deck, it's fairly reasonable to get like games like Spider-Man and God of War, you know, playable portably. But the Steam Deck is a different thing to the Nintendo Switch. You know, Switch is something that I can go into a store, I can pick it up and just play every game that is that is a Nintendo Switch game on it. Steam Deck is a little more for like the core PC user to you know, have a portable option to play their Steam library. You know, they are kind of competitors, but you know, I don't think they are that much at the end of the day. But man, you know, a Switch 2 is definitely going to be a little easier to play than a Steam Deck, and you don't have to play this big old guessing game as to if a game will run at all on your Switch 2. Like, if it's a Switch 2 game, it'll run. May not run great, but it'll run. So this is obviously a big deal. I think this is going to be a huge leap forward from the original Switch, and it's still going to be a bit magical to see a lot of these games playing portably on this device. Maybe not as much with the Switch 1, but I think it'll still be pretty damn cool. Only problem is this just isn't really the same as like previous Nintendo consoles in terms of excitement. This is exactly what you need. This is exactly what you want. The Switch at this point is kind of just like a mainstay. It's just kind of like, it's such a household name. You kind of take it for granted. It's a part of all of our lives, you know? So getting a Switch 2, while it's this big moment, it's not like something that's gonna change our lives, you know, change our lives as much as, like, let's say the Switch 1 kind of did, I guess. This is more so exciting because, you know, we get to keep playing games how we have for the past nearly 10 years, but in a much more comfortable, much higher quality way. So that is exciting, but you know, I'm gonna have to see a little more before I start pissing myself. Who am I kidding? I'm a Nintendo fan. I've been pissing myself constantly this whole time.